Hi, everybody, and welcome to FatherWagner.com, where we're having a very special um, presentation this evening. I know that I contacted many of you through social media and my email list and stuff like that, and I am so pleased to have this special session tonight online with all of you. As normal, you can sign into the chat, which is to the right of this video screen, and if you'd like to ask me any questions, or our special guest any questions, you are very welcome to do that. I see that a couple of you are already online. You can sign in a variety of ways. You can sign in through your Facebook or Twitter. You can also sign in anonymously and pick a name and an avatar if you want to remain anonymous. But we have a great person here with us tonight. We have her name is D.L. Augustine.
Yes.
And she is the author of The Joseiah Effect. And here she is right there beside us. How are you doing this evening?
Hi,
DL,
how's
nice
everybody?
to see you this evening.
Thank you.
And I hope that this finds you well. And let's see here. I know that we have some great things to talk about this evening, particularly your book. And so let's see here. I'm going to make sure that we have everything in order. Let's see. And all right, I'm trying to find your questions, Dorothy. There we go. All right. Let's see here. Again, if you are just joining us, you are welcome to. Let's see, I can't find your questions all of a sudden. And you're welcome to sign in and ask any questions of DL here. And I had them on the other thing here.
I'll resend it.
That's okay. That'd be good.
Okay. 1 second.
All right, that'd be fine. So DL here has written a book called The Joseiah Effect, and that's what we're here to talk about this evening. And let me just give you a little bio on her right now as we're sitting here. And it says, D.L. Augustine is a playwright, author, and motivational speaker, and you live in Etna, Ohio.
Yes.
And is a wife, mother, and minister. The Joseiah Effect, subtitled The Power of One, is D.L. Augustine's debut novel and is the first book in a 3-part series. So you've got a couple more coming, huh?
I do. I'm working on the second one now.
How's that going?
It's going good. It should be out the fall of this year.
Okay, good. And book 2 is scheduled to be released in fall of 2015. Yeah. So you are working hard on this right now, aren't you? I'm sure.
I am.
That's really excellent and also good. And it's interesting to write a book, isn't it?
Wow.
Tell me about the process. What got you into writing this book here?
You know, I am known. I've written plays. People who know me, they know me for being a playwright. So I've done several plays, and that's been my genre. So, but then when I got actually it started with the prologue of the book is a letter, and the whole book actually evolved from that letter, and then I just turned it into a book.
Okay, and talk about the process of writing the book. Like, how do you sit down and actually do something like this? Before we get into the heart of what the book is all about, how do you? Because I've written books before, and it's very difficult. And how do you get to that?
It's complicated, actually. It takes a lot of discipline. I will say that, and I will be honest and admit that I am not the most disciplined person. So for me, it's like writing is a gift for me. It's like I've always been able to write. And I have I tell very good stories, or so I'm told. So it kind of started from there. And what it does when you begin to, like, as I begin to make the decision to go ahead and turn this into a book as opposed to a play, I had to sit down. I mean, and you're talking about hours of investment of time, and it's quite an investment. And it does require that you be disciplined and you set some guidelines and you just dig in. So it was complicated.
So what did you write? A couple pages a day? How do you write? What's your process of writing? And then we'll get into some of what the book is all about.
You know, I write until I don't hear anything. It's like, as long as it's almost like I'm taking dictation. That's my process.
Uh-huh.
When I sit onto the computer, I basically, it's like, and a lot of people storyboard, they lay it out like, how they want things to flow. And that's not really my process. It's like, I have like a general idea of
Mm-hmm.
what I want to say. And then as I sit onto my computer, it's almost like I'm taking dictation. And I just type what I
Right.
see and what I hear. And then I type and it can be hours. I've done 12, 13, 14, 15 hour sessions, to where I got up, stood up one time, and my knees gave out. I had been sitting down so long. So, it just depends on the day, depends on the reception, mental reception that you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And what mood you're in that? I know I've
yeah,
written books before, and there are some days in which I find it to be very easy, and then some days in
yeah,
which you have to overcome
absolutely,
some things like that. Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, tell me about. Let's get into the book. Tell me what the book is about. Is it? Why did you? What inspired you to write this book? First of all, like, was there some
Well,
event in your life that caused you to write this book?
you know, the book started again with the letter. Like the prologue is a letter. The letter is written by a 10-year-old child, and the letter is written to God. And the letter is like this child is writes a letter, and he sharing with God that like I love my mom, but his mom was dysfunctional,
Mm-hmm.
and so he writes a letter and asks God, how can I get God to love me more? And the letter is found by his teacher, and his teacher had instantly knows that this is a child in crisis. So what she does is she has a best friend that's a world-renowned child psychiatrist. She puts the two of them together. Psychiatrist reads the letter and she is determined, I'm going to save this little boy.
Mm-hmm.
But what she doesn't know is that this has all been a plan by God, orchestrated by God to save her from her childhood trauma. So the little boy, she thinks she's going to save the little boy, but God has sent the little boy to her to save her.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Isn't so? So the little boy is almost like an angel, and
In a
in some
sense,
regard, yeah.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In a sense, absolutely.
Just in the sense of what angel means is like a messenger, and
Yes,
then he brings it, and
absolutely.
whether he knows it or not, he's bringing the message.
Absolutely, and that's absolutely
Uh,
right.
yeah. So what is the crisis that the little boy finds himself in initially?
Well, basically, he had a mother who not only I being kind when I say distracted, and he had a mother who
He's
was
distracted by
her life.
not by the Price is Right. Let's put that
Absolutely,
right.
there
Okay.
you
All right.
go.
Yeah. All right.
Absolutely, she was, and but this was a very special little boy because here is a little boy who has a mother who is, not living up to expectations of a mother, and this little boy, he loves his mother. Even though he knows that he's getting a raw deal, he loves his mother, and he basically wants her to know, like, I'm enough for you. But so that's the whole purpose of him writing this letter, for her to see that he's enough. And it basically, this he's a 10-year-old child. The little boy is only 10 years old. These are things, concepts that's way beyond what he is capable of emotionally.
Right. Right. So there's some inspiration in his writing as well.
Yes.
And where does that inspiration? Is that inspiration from God?
Yes.
And does that little boy have already have a relationship with God? Does he know that this inspiration is coming from God, or is this sort of God sort of quietly using this little boy as sort of his tool?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it is exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the boy does not truly have God awareness at this time, what the child has is a heart that God is able to use, because the little boy, when he is confronted with these challenges in life, he could have acted in a manner of different ways. But what he does is he loves. And this is what you follow this child throughout every encounter that he has in this book. He has another way of seeing things. He has a way of bringing illumination to situations. God, and that's how God is able to work through this child. So, and everywhere he goes, he brings illumination. He makes people have aha moments. And, God is just able to use him.
Excellent. Just for those of you who are joining us right now, and I see that there are people coming in and going out of the chat, you're welcome to sign into the chat and ask DL a question. But I'm sitting here with DL Augustine, who has written a book called The Joseiah Effect, and I'm going to show you a picture of it right here. It's actually the Amazon.com image that we're seeing there. And I love Amazon because they have all these 3D effects going on in here, and so we can see the back of the book right there. It's almost like having the real book. Even though I actually have a copy of the book here, I do like the 3D rendering of it. I think that's kind of neat, huh? So you can get it on paperback through Amazon, or you can, I believe you just added it to Kindle, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and let's take a look at your website here real quick, and it's dlaugustine.com. I'll put that in the chat for all of you to see if you want to follow it here. Oh, kind of went dark there for a second, and so we're going to make sure that gets into the chat for people to click on. Should you want to do that, now you have your website's very nice.
Thank you.
You have a very nice website. Let's
Thank
go ahead
you.
and put us both in there, and now they can see you and the website. And so we do all sorts of great things here at FatherWagner.com. So you have your website's nice and clean, and it's very simple to navigate. It looks like, and so you have your bio on there. Tell me why. So this little boy sent to the psychologist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And she has her own stuff that she's kind of dealing with.
But she doesn't know
But
it.
she doesn't know. Well, I don't know. I know lots of therapists out there who have no clue of their own issues.
Absolutely.
It might even be one of the reasons why they got into therapy in the first place, right?
I believe that, actually.
Yeah. So what is so she just thinks she's doing her job with this kid, and
Yes.
and how do they end up meeting each other? Is it through the letter?
It is. It's through
Yeah.
the letter. The letter is the impetus that actually sets them on a course. The teacher puts them two together. She works it out so that she takes the child on as a pro bono patient.
Mm-hmm.
And she begins to see this child. And this child affects her unlike any other patient that she's ever encountered.
Right.
She even knows that she has crossed lines concerning this child. She knows that it's a very personal connection. But she is compelled to continue on with this child.
Mm-hmm.
And so their relationship morphs into something more than patient and doctor. She becomes his champion, and she is determined that she is going to save this little child again. And she goes beyond, she crosses boundaries, actually, that no doctor should really cross.
Right.
And again, that was...
Little transference, I think,
absolutely,
is what we call that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
So, I mean, what happened? How does she begin to I don't want to give away too much of the book,
Yes.
because I want people to read it, but how does she begin to cross those lines, and why? What's her motivation for doing that?
She is drawn to the child,
Uh-huh.
and she is not sure. In the beginning, she is not why. She's not sure why she's so drawn to this child. She just knows that she is consumed with this overwhelming protectiveness of this child, and she can't understand why his mother can't see what a special child that he is. So again, and so the child, of course, now is drawn to her because he sees that this doctor is putting it all on the line for me, and he's not used to that. And so the transference goes both ways, because she becomes an ideal, and is that what he wishes his mother could be. He wishes his mother could be more like his doctor, and she begins to wish that he was her son. So that is a path that they go down, and without giving away the book,
But that's where it begins.
Yes.
We don't have to give away the ending or anything like that.
Yes.
But we do. I mean, there's a lot of book here, so
Yeah.
we won't give away the entire plot here. As people can see, I have the book right here, so it's a fairly hefty book here, but it's about 200 to 300 pages. But I mean, there's a lot going on here. So
it is.
So she begins to sort of see not only how special he is, but she begins to see a little bit of herself in him, I suspect,
Yes.
as well.
He stirs up some things.
Mm-hmm.
Some things that have been long ago forgotten, some things that happened to her in her childhood. Her experience with him begins to awaken old memories, things that she has long ago buried. So that brings about an awareness in her of some emotional issues and some emotional scars and damage that she was unaware that she had. Because many times what we do when we have scars and emotional damage, and not just from childhood, some things are adult onset.
Sure.
we take them on, and these things happen to us, and we get banged up, damaged, and we go on. We get up, we dust ourselves off because that's what we're told to do, and which is right. We're supposed to. And but what happens oftentimes is that we are left with scars and wounds and places in us that never heal. And we go on and we put on the brave face. We go on in life. We get educated. We get good jobs. We get married and have families, never ever dealing with those broken places within us. And that's what the doctor had done.
Sure, and even maybe I meet this with I encounter this with a lot of clinicians and people that come into my office is that especially those that are trained.
Yes.
Is sometimes they train themselves right around their own problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what she did.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what she did. And it's very common. It's easy to see the brokenness in people who are on drugs, who are homeless, who are in bad situations. It's easy to see their brokenness. It's like nobody would even challenge that, oh, these people have issues or they have broken places. But when you have people who are successful in life, we oftentimes overlook the damage that's been done to them, as they overlook, because they told themselves, they fixed themselves up and covered it up, and it's like we put makeup over it, we put clothes over it, we put education over it, and we sit here and we look good, and nobody knows that we are broken internally.
Yeah, it's like Facebook, right?
Very good.
Facebook's a great example.
We can be who we want to be on Facebook.
Yeah, nobody ever puts their whole self on Facebook.
That's right. You can take a trip and never leave the farm.
Now there are some people that put their whole self on Facebook.
Too much of themselves.
A little too much of themselves. But
absolutely.
Nobody's out there. I mean, generally, people are not out there, talking about their deep-seated issues.
No,
Most
they're not.
people want their lives to look pristine and
That's
peachy.
true.
I had this friend on Facebook that ended up getting divorced. This is a couple years ago, and it wasn't a very close friend. I have 3,000 friends on Facebook, so it's not anybody's going to be watching this, I'm sure. But it was like, their life was great, and all of a sudden they're divorced. It's like, what? Wait.
Everything was so perfect.
You just had the kid in the profile picture.
Yeah.
You just had the great wedding pictures up, from 2 years ago. Everybody, you're throwing an anniversary party, and all of a sudden they're divorced, and you don't really know. I can tell you from pastoral ministry as well that there are some people that sit in the front pews of the church, but and they look nice, but what's going on underneath is this chaos, and this
chaos.
And people are the same way, especially the chaotic ones. They don't necessarily know why the chaos is happening in their lives, and they put together one image of what's going on, but really something else is going on underneath.
That's absolutely
and they might even not
true.
know themselves.
They may not even know.
And I think that's probably. It sounds to me like that's what's kind of going on with
the doctor.
With
absolutely,
the doctor. That's right. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, have you met people like this? And tell me your own experience with that sort of thing.
I absolutely have met people like this. Not only have I met people like this, and usually before God has you write about something, He will it's usually something that's close to you or associated with you or your own personal experience. Now, the book is not my personal experience per se, but it has parts of my story in it.
Yeah. And
in that sense, I speak to the fact that I too was raised dysfunctional. I had a mother who was an alcoholic. And and I always said, like, well, my mother didn't abuse me. And she didn't. I didn't get beat or none of the horrific things that you hear. And, and it took me to see a counselor to actually understand that I was minimizing the things that had happened to me as a child. It's like, I got a raw deal. It's like I really did, And as I grew up and got into my teenage years, I acted out. And, and that's usually, it's very common. I acted out pretty much in every way imaginable. I did the drug thing. I did the promiscuity thing, the guys, the drugs, just being, out there out of control, living your life. But it's like, it's from a place of anger and that I didn't know was there. I didn't really know that I was angry about the way that I was raised or the way that my mother was. And as I began to, get older, and then something happened, that made me stop. Actually, what happened was I used to sell marijuana. I'm just being forthcoming.
Well, sure, sure. We all do things that.
And that was my past. We're talking about back in the 70s. I got somebody broke into my house to rob me. And it was so traumatic for me that, I jumped out the window and escaped. And I went and called my sister-in-law, who was a Christian. And so, she actually introduced me to Christ, led me to Christ, and I got saved. And, and I would like to say that, as soon as I got saved, everything was fine. But it wasn't. It was a process.
Sure, salvation is absolutely a process.
Yes, it was.
There's the moment in which you're saved, and then when you become, then redemption starts kind of taking root inside of you. Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. That is so true. But God took me. But then, I think about how many years that it took for me to actually realize that I had damage. And then it's like once you discover, like, okay, so you see, I have damage. And it's like an awareness that comes. But, God had Moses on the backside of the desert for over 40 years.
That's right.
So it's like, you think in your time that it's like, wow, it took like 20 years for me to even know that I have damage, and for me to understand why I did what I did back when I was younger. But it's like, I can't tell anybody about this until I know what it is. So this is why God had to take me this route, and this is what this book is birthed from, my own journey of self-discovery of my own pain.
Yeah, and I can tell you as a priest, some of the things that I sort of discover with people. Again, just before I go on to my little part of this, you're at FatherWagner.com. We are with D.L. Augustine, and she has written a book called The Joseiah Effect. That's what we're sort of discussing right now. And one of the things that we're discussing is how we sort of end up discovering our damage later on in life. Everybody gets damaged from time to time, and one of the things that I sort of have understood with people is that when I'm dealing with them in my office, which actually for DL and myself is about 6 feet away, because we're in my studio here in my office. But I notice that people are often dealing with things that in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that happened to them when they were 5, 10, and 15.
Absolutely. And
then what happens is that the damage sort of compounds because you do all this other, what I call avoidance behavior. I call it that, what you were talking about, you were referring to before, sort of the running around.
Yes.
And this and the that and all the things you mentioned.
Acting out.
We don't need to repeat all those things. Yeah, the acting out. I call it avoidance behavior because in some sense you're trying to find what you don't have.
Yeah.
That you didn't get when you were 5 or 10 or 15.
Yes.
And what happens is that as you sort of pursue the things that aren't helpful or healthy, it actually causes more damage.
It does.
So there's really two layers that I've sort of discovered with people as they go along in life. One is the recent damage, the clear damage, the alcoholism or the this or the that. We got a good show from somebody who's watching, so that's nice. Appreciate that, Emma. So that's nice that you're welcome to sign into the chat beside us and ask DL Augustine some questions. But one of the things is that we have is that we have to uncover that older damage that caused it.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I also tell people is that we get it's sort of like being hungry. When we're 5, we're hungry for things. When we're 10, we're hungry for things. And I'm not talking about just like normal hunger, but I'm talking about things like, we're hungry for love, we're hungry for attention, we're hungry for affection. And if we don't get that, that doesn't mean that hunger goes away.
Yes.
And I use an analogy of hunger. I'm really good with hunger. I know lots about it. So one of the things is that about hunger is that if I'm hungry and I don't eat today, my hunger from today doesn't go away tomorrow or the next day.
No, it doesn't.
And the hunger that we have when we're 5 or 10 years old or 10 or 20 years old even, well, 20 we're getting into that new damage area. That's when people are mostly, out and about doing their thing. But you're still hungry.
Yes. If
you didn't get love at 5, you're still hungry for love at 20.
You're still hungry for it.
Yeah, and you're still hungry for love at 30. And what happens is that, it's sort of like eating junk food. I went on trip with a couple priest friends of mine, and we ate junk food for the first 3 days. And finally, we're like, we need to go get some real food because I think we're dying here. And our real food was actually chicken wings. Was actually an upgrade from what we were eating. And it's that sort of thing where you can fill your life with that junk food for a while.
Yes.
And then what happens is that you really crave something that's more healthy.
That's more substantial, more real.
Well, you find a way to get what you need.
Yes.
And with a lot of people, I even will go back into their memory and sort of allow them to sort of in a session to comfort themselves in their memory.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I find that even when they go back in time, so to speak, in their head, the way that our brains work is kind of amazing. That they can go back in their history and their mind and their memory and actually give themselves the things that they need back there. So again, unmet needs at 5 are still unmet needs at 30. So a lot of what we have to do is sort of get through that first that top layer of damage from the eating too much Doritos, so to speak. And I
like your analogy.
Yeah, and then we have to get down there and say, well, what were you really hungry for when you were 5 or 10?
And that's right, the journey of self-discovery. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. You make a great point about the new damage that we pile on top of the old damage.
Yeah.
And basically the old damage propels us onto behaviors that make us create new damage. So it's like when God comes in and has to clean up the mess, so to speak, he deals with this on different levels. It's like, okay, let's deal with the new damage, because usually he doesn't jump right to the old, because usually it's like you trace a root. When you're pulling up a root, it's like you start at the top. The root runs deep. The root, but you keep working and pulling it up as you go along, and it's like the new damage. Like, okay, so because of whatever your need was, you did some behaviors. Okay, now it's like you're dealing with drug addictions, you're dealing with homelessness, you're dealing with, dysfunctionality in your marriage or whatever. It's like, when God comes in and has to begin to clean house, so to speak, he's like, those things usually get picked up first. It's like, let's pick up the house first.
Sure.
We're going to do deep cleaning later. But like right now, let's get all this junk up off the floor. It's like, and so you start out and, you're picking up all the junk. But the house is still not clean, but it's like, it's better. It's better. And this is how we are, once we meet Christ. We're better, and because we picked up all the junk off the floor, but the real work is yet to begin. And as you stay in Christ, and as you go deeper in Christ, Christ begins to pull up that root, going deeper, pulling off layers. And depending on what your background was, it could take years. Depending on how much damage was done. But, the whole purpose, it's like, and my whole message is that God wants to heal us. God wants us to be functioning. It's like the body of Christ, there's so much work to be done. Like they say, the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And oftentimes the laborers are few because we're not well. We sit in churches, we go to church faithfully, but we're not well. We're not fit to go to work out in the field, but we at least are in the hospital. But God wants us well so that we can do the work that we've been commissioned to do.
Mm-hmm. Which is what would you say that the work we've been commissioned to do is exactly?
The gospel of Christ.
Preaching the gospel.
The gospel of Christ. And I'm not talking about up in a pulpit. It's like we've all been called to preach the gospel of Christ to somebody on the bus seat next to us. If you ride the bus, somebody, and you don't always have to open up your mouth and preach. Your life is the greatest message that you can ever deliver. It's like when people see your life, they should see Christ. I have a friend, and oftentimes I wonder, it's like this is what older people say. They go, she's meaner than a barrel of butcher knives. Okay.
And I know people like that.
Yeah, she really, it's like, but she, on one hand, she always wants to talk about God, but it's like you're so mean to people. It's like a conflicting message. You say out your mouth this one thing, but your actions and how you treat people say another. This is one of the ways that this damage manifests. It's like, it doesn't always manifest in drugs, alcohol, men. It's like your attitude. It's like you're angry. You're angry. You're so angry and bitter. It's like you need to get to the root of bitterness.
Yeah. Well, I often find that those things are very deep down. I actually have another
Absolutely.
analogy. It's like the Princess and the Pea. Remember that story?
And the
Princess
mattress,
and the-
yeah.
yeah, and she's got the mattresses.
Yes.
And underneath all of it is the pea, and
Yes.
she can't. The princess is sensitive, yada yada yada, and she can't figure out why she can't get comfortable.
Yes.
And I mean, really, you have to start pushing the
That's
mattresses
a
off.
great analogy.
Yeah, I came up
Yes.
with it long time ago. That's an old
That
oldie
is really
for
good,
Father
though.
Wagner here. Yeah, I actually changed the analogy. I think it's an onion underneath. So not
Why?
only-
Why an onion?
well, because after you push the mattresses off, and the mattresses actually I give names to. Anger is the top mattress.
Ooh, I like that.
Anger excuse me, addiction.
I like that.
Addiction's the top
Uh-huh.
mattress. So there's your avoidance behavior. Your anger is your second mattress. A lot of people are angry underneath their avoidance behavior. And then the last mattress is fear. And then once you push that off and you find the onion, you have to start peeling the onion. That's why it's not a pea.
That's funny. That last mattress, fear. That was my last mattress.
It's pretty common to have fear be the last one.
That was my last
Yeah.
mattress.
And fear often, still even in people that are recovering from addiction and stuff like that, tends to be the motivating. Anger, you see, it has to be, because anger is a reaction to fear. Anger
Yes.
is you're afraid, and so you
Yes.
get cornered and you turn and you get angry.
That's
Because
absolutely
that's what
right.
happens. If you corner an animal,
Yes.
a cat,
Yes.
it's gonna run away from you
Yes.
until it gets cornered, then it's gonna turn around and hiss at you, right?
That is so true.
And we do the same thing, and then what happens is we can't handle the anger anymore, so we try to put water on it with the avoidance behavior stuff.
Yes, that is so
And
true.
the first reaction a lot of people have in recovery of addiction, particularly, and when they are in my office, trying to figure out what's going on here, is anger.
Okay.
And then you dive into that a little deeper, and it's
Yeah.
fear.
Yeah.
You find out what they're really afraid of, or what they and sometimes what they're afraid of is that they're never going to get what they need. Too. We talked about those needs
That's
assessments
true.
and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's like, am I ever gonna? It's
Yeah.
like that. Is it U2? I think they have that song. I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
I don't know that song.
Well, yeah, I don't listen to a lot of that music either, but I just know that's I still haven't found what I'm looking for. Is still kind
Yeah.
of a lot of people's chorus.
Yeah,
Or,
I agree.
Or how about this one, like Mick Jagger? I can't get no satisfaction. Right there, you go. We all know that one. Yeah.
Everybody knows
Yeah, everybody
that.
knows
That's
that
so
one. Yeah.
true.
And I think that's somebody's greatest fear is that
Yeah.
is what if I don't get what I need, and what if I'm not lovable, and
Yeah.
and those things begin, those mattresses and the onions
Yes.
and all those things we talk about, those begin when we're 5 and we're
Yes,
10.
they do. Yes, they do.
And again, unfulfilled needs remain unfulfilled.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't eat today doesn't mean I'm not going to be hungry
Yeah.
again tomorrow. And it's the same. It's a compounding hunger that happens to us. So, and it's interesting. The characters of your book are a 10-year-old boy and a child psychologist, right?
Yeah.
And his mother, I presume, is
Yeah.
in there somewhere.
She's in there.
Yeah, I mean, she's of course doing giving him some onions for him to carry through
She
his
absolutely
life. Yeah.
is.
So does she? Is there any redemption for her at all in the book?
Well, I don't want to give anything away, but let
Right,
me
so-
say this. Now, the one valuable lesson that I learned through this whole process that God took me through before I was able to write this book was the issue with my mother and me, tracing the root of what was going on with me. Well, when I got to the root and found out what it was, it's like, oh, I'm angry at my mother. I'm angry about how things went down when I was a child. Okay, that's fine. Discovery is great. But what do you do with that discovery? It's like it's not good enough just to discover what it is, even though that's the first step. You need to figure out what it is. How you talked about where you did not get that need fulfilled.
Yeah.
So once you trace that down to the root and you acknowledge it, that it's there, and you own it and you stand up to it, then what? Okay, God says that we have to forgive them. You know, God says whatever it is, you have to, in order for you to move on, in order for you to be free, you have to forgive. The Bible says to love those that despitefully misuse you. You have to, how many times shall I forgive my brother? 7 times. You have to forgive those people who wounded you. And that is really hard. That is really hard. But one thing that God did for me that really, really helped me, he told me, he said, you don't know your mother's story. And that was a curious thing to me. I didn't know what he meant by that. But as time went on, he revealed my mother's story to me. I learned my mother was molested by her father.
So she had her own onions.
She had her own, exactly. He was an Episcopalian minister, you know, a man of God, pretty prominent. It's like, and I always wondered, you know, like the family always went to church. My mother never took us to church, you know. I mean, there were so many things going on. It's like, and again, you're running around angry about what you didn't get. But once you understand, like, she was broken. I see now. I mean, it was like, it was easy for me to forgive her and to release the anger that I had because she didn't have a chance. You know, I thought I got a raw deal. It didn't compare to hers. So, of course, I was able to forgive my mother and to move on towards healing.
Yeah, and so, and as you mentioned before, healing is itself a process.
Yes, it is.
It's just not. I know that a lot of people want to be healed like this,
yes.
and I tell you, for some people, it's a lifelong process.
Yeah,
so
it is, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay, and that's
okay.
why it's an onion. That's why it's a process.
Absolutely,
you know?
And that's okay. Just to be in the process, you got to get to the process. That's the most important thing. No matter how long it takes, you have to make healing a priority. And you have to always work towards that because you need to. I want to be whole. I don't want to be a shattered piece. I don't want to be a person that's fragmented. I want to be a whole, healthy individual. So
what do you think that is? What is? I know that's a tough question. You tell me things like we're on God's mission. So I'll ask you what God's mission is. You tell us you want to be a whole, happy individual. What does that mean? What does that look like to you? What is an image of a good, healthy, whole personality, like you mentioned?
That would be someone who can look inward.
Yeah, someone that can look inward.
And look back, and look forward, and see the past, and not see it with ghosts. See it and understand the pain that you suffered. It was real. And there's no amount of it's you can't change what it was, whatever it was. You know, you have to stand up to it and don't let it hold you hostage anymore. I refuse to live in the past any longer. We let our past dictate our present. It's like we live today and we're making decisions, but they're based on old information. You know, it's based on my experience back then. I'm making bad decisions because of something that happened to me. And I don't want to be subject to that anymore. That's my past. I've walked away. I've let it go. And I stand before you in my right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
So it's sort of an idea of, and in the Catholic Church we talk a lot about this too, being present.
Yes.
Being present. We talk about that in terms of our sacraments. One of the things that we believe in the Catholic Church is that our sacraments make Jesus present.
Yes.
In the here and now. So it's not that we're just like rehashing things from 2,000
yes,
years ago.
That's right.
But it's happening right now.
That's right.
And our past, I do, my first session when I talk to people when they come in to see me is, I call it the Carfax History Report.
I like that.
I
think I know
where
you're going with
when you buy a car,
yeah.
you want to make sure how many dings and dents it's had, how many accidents it's been in. And that's what we go over the first. So there is some benefit to going over our
yes,
past.
Yes, it is.
Because again, those unfulfilled needs are still there, and you kind of got to start figuring out where that is, and then you have to start fulfilling those now.
Yes.
So I do believe that there is a benefit to looking in the past. I'm not a therapist or anything, but I do a lot of spiritual direction,
mm-hmm.
and I do believe that there is some benefit to that.
I do too.
And bringing that into the present because
mm-hmm.
those things do affect us. We are a product of everything that we've come from
mm-hmm.
up to this point, but how do we bring that how do we heal ourselves or allow God to heal us in the present?
Yeah.
And how do we get what we need right now? How do we get right now what we didn't get back then?
Yes.
And I think a lot of people do kind of live in the past in regards to those
mm-hmm.
kind of things because it's easy.
It is.
It's easy to spin around that.
It becomes your norm. It becomes that rut you get stuck in, and it's like even though it's a rut, it's a comfortable rut. You're familiar with it, and you've been doing it for a long time, and it's like, and even though you're not comfortable in it, you stay there because it's your familiar.
We got some comments coming in, but I think we're going to save those for tomorrow night.
Okay.
For tomorrow night's show. Excellent questions coming in, but I'm not sure that those are along the lines of what we're talking about there. So yeah, and it's of course in terms of that right, kind of coming back into our sort of right orientation with God. Can sometimes take, if we're really lost, sometimes take some time to get back on the right road.
Absolutely, it can.
Yeah. So maybe you can talk about that. What are some of the ways that God has brought you back personally into His So you talked about some of the things you did when you were 16 to 20 something.
Yeah.
And now you're past all that. And
yes.
What's the middle piece for you? How did God do that for you? Generally speaking,
God just began to let me know that, number one, I was not alone. Because all my life I felt alone. And I felt like it was just me. And God had to teach me that He was with me. And even after I met God, and there were times in the beginning of my walk with God, I was unfaithful. You go to church and you do good for 6 months, and then you drop out of church for 2 months, and I went through that. There were some years where I went through that. That was the process we're talking about. And God, and it was like, and then one day I was really, really overwhelmed with Sam. Like, I felt bad because how I was treating God. It's like, because I loved Him, but I just didn't know how to not do what I was doing,
Right.
And it wasn't that I didn't love God. I just didn't know yet. So, and you know what? And I learned that God had to teach me how to love Him, because I had no examples of what it meant to truly love. When I looked around in my world, I didn't know, there were no examples. I didn't have a Leave It to Beaver life for the older listeners. I just didn't. So some things that you need to do, you don't know how to do. But the good news is that God will teach you everything you need to know. And it's been a process. Everything that I have needed, God has provided. And, and here I stand today. I'm an author. I'm a girl who, had, a past that was, there was a possibility that I might not have recovered, because everybody doesn't.
Right.
So to me,
a lot of people don't. Most people don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
The grace of God.
Yeah.
I stand here before you.
Yeah. So how does that grace sustain you day to day? So let's bring it into the present right now. Where's some of the places that you see the grace of God sort of manifesting? Like I like in the book, like, God's grace manifests through the boy to the woman. So God's grace comes in sort of very strange ways from time to time. So where in your own life from day to day do you see the grace of God? Where's that manifest in your life?
I just had a conversation with someone, and because God was so merciful to me, it's like I have no choice but to be merciful with people. And oftentimes people say that I am too soft. Like, you need to be, you letting people they're not taking advantage of me. It's like nobody's taking advantage of me. It's like I am going to show people what God showed me. I'm not going to show them me. I'm going to show them Christ, because that's what people need to see. They don't really need to see me. They need to see Christ in me, and that's what I try to do. I try to live my life every day, so that people know that Christ lives in me. And, and I don't mean that trying to be deep or anything. I just, try to live like Christ.
So you try to be the grace of God in other people's lives.
Yes,
is what I'm
do.
Hearing you say.
I do. I think we all should.
All right. Well, tell me about the plays. How did you get into? So this is the first book you've written, I assume.
Yes.
Just from your comments, and but you've been writing plays for some time.
I have, actually.
And where have they been performed? What were the plays about? Can we see any online? Are there any that we can find on the interwebs here?
Actually, I haven't. I'm not sure. I don't think so because most of them were done like locally. Like I've done local churches, did a couple in the smaller theaters. So nothing really big. But my new one that's about to come out, which is coming out in October of this year, called Soul on the Auction Block.
Soul on the Auction Block. Well, that sounds like an interesting
Yeah,
title.
it is. It's an interesting play. It deals with again, it deals with broken places. It deals with life interrupted, how we can start down a path and something tragic can happen and it will divert you. You know, you could be minding your own business, going about your way one day, and something can happen so traumatic that it will knock you off your course and change your course. But God is like GPS, He will reroute you.
All right. Well, we're getting some interesting questions that are. I'm gonna address some of these tomorrow night because they're very Catholic questions that I'm getting. So, but we're actually being joined from across the water right now.
Really?
Yeah, we have someone in England even who's joining
wow.
us at almost 1 a.m. So that's kind of neat, huh?
That is neat.
Yeah, the power of the internet, huh? So
I love it.
I know there's more people out there because I can see the numbers on the chat. So they're just being very quiet for us tonight. Yes.
That's okay.
So that's all right. But before we sort of close this evening, why don't you tell me, are there any speaking engagements that you have coming up, or is there any book signings that you've got going on? Where can we see you, and how can we?
Okay.
How can we, other than, of course, I'm sitting about 4 feet from you. See, here's my hand right there. So you can. Anyway,
I do have a book signing coming up. Actually, here I'm doing a book signing here at the St. John Learning Center, which is right next door at 640 South Ohio. And I'm doing a book signing on the 28th of May. And that is going to be from 5 to 7 p.m.
Okay.
June the 25th, I will be in Atlanta on a TV show called Atlanta Live, and I will be discussing the book, The Joseiah Effect, and God's Determination to Heal. I have some other speaking engagements like this Friday. I have something coming up at the Central Community House.
Great. And
some other things that we're still working out the details on. So my
Excellent.
Facebook and Twitter, you can find out everything that I'm doing, or my website.
Why don't we? What is your Twitter handle?
Twitter is at DL Augustine.
I'm putting that in the chat for you. And
Okay.
then what's your Facebook?
That's author DL Augustine.
Okay, and so you can see those in the chat bar there, to the right of the screen. In case you want to do that, let's take a look at your website one more time, just so we can see this. And so you have a lot of great resources here around your website and things of that nature. You have some good welcome stuff. It's a very pretty website.
Thank you.
And I know that you'll eventually, because we talked about it, you're gonna have some places for people to sign up for.
Yes.
Your email updates, so that when
Yes.
you wanna have
Absolutely.
those, that'll be fine. And like I said, a very pretty website, and great sitting down with you and chatting with you.
Thank you.
And so we, I always have a good time. We had a good time when I met you a couple weeks ago.
Yes,
and,
we did.
I'm still making my way through the book myself, so that's why I didn't want any spoilers
I
myself.
put it on Kindle for you.
It's on Kindle. All right, yeah. Let's take a look at what it looks like over here.
Actually,
On Amazon, this is what it looks like on Amazon, and I know that this is probably not the Kindle page. I suspect
and you know what? It's like the Kindle is still waiting on me to go in and plug something in, but it's on there.
Yeah.
So I still have one more step
so you
to
can
do.
find, and yeah, that's right. You can find Kindle and stuff.
Yes.
Like that. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, alrighty then. Is there any last words, any burning desires that you might have to tell us here?
I just want to say thank you to you for letting me come on and share my passion, because my passion is for brokenness. I just want to do whatever I can to share with you what I have learned.
Good.
So, and if it will help somebody, that's all I want. So, thank you again. I appreciate your time.
All right. Well, folks, my name is Father Wagner, fatherwagner.com. I have a live show every Wednesday night at 8. I wanted to do something special with DL here tonight, so that's why we're on a Tuesday night. But as I'm sure that there's new people watching, and I know that I have some regular folks watching as well. Welcome to join me every night at 8 o'clock. It's sort of Catholic Variety Hour. And then I also suggest as I mentioned before, the Joseiah effect. We all have brokenness, and sometimes it just takes us a little push to discover those things, right? All right, my brothers and sisters, the Lord be with you. And Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Have a good night.